Sports, featuring Command Combat Civil War, the game that created this channel. Today we are doing the first major battle of the Civil War, the first battle of Bull Run. This is also the first battle pack in the Command Combat Civil War series. Now, fair warning, you might hear cats in the background. We just got a new foster cat and they are getting used to one another. Anyway, so what's happening in this battle? This, as I said, was the first battle of Bull Run. This is the Warrenton Turnpike, and essentially it runs at least close to Washington. I forget if it's exactly directly to Washington, but basically this is a major thoroughfare. And it would go like this, and then Richmond is sort of that way. In fact, actually, they could have cut quicker that way, but there is a major railroad at a town called Manassas, and that's what the Confederates call this first Manassas. It's right down that road. That's what the Confederates were specifically guarding. The Federals first started going directly towards it, down more that direction, and met with the Confederates at a place called Blackburn's Ford. You probably saw the video of that. That was last week. And essentially they more or less just did that as a feint to make the Confederates think they were going that way, because that was a more direct route. While meanwhile they made the main forces go up around this way and met their few forces here. You can see the Confederates only have 2 brigades guarding a couple of bridges right there, a stone bridge, and I believe it was like a wooden bridge or something like that. But anyway, it was another kind of way across. There's also a ford over this direction. But even this was a feint. They basically made them think they were going that way. They sent a division this direction. The Confederates thought they were going that direction. The Confederates have 2 divisions that's not coordinated by a corps. And the Federals come here with 1 division, and they swung the others all the way around, and they're going to come in this road. Now, they're not there yet, but in the coming turns, they're going to be coming in this direction. And the idea was to get the Confederates, whose division is coming up this road, to come over here and try to defend that against that, while then the Federals would come down this road and hit them in the flank. Now, there's a little metagaming here because we know, what's going to happen, but the Confederates did figure it out last minute in the first use of semi-forward warfare, where essentially they had somebody signal over to this hill, and that signaled down this way and told them, hey, you're going to be flanked over from this direction. Or actually, I think it was the other way around. Anyway, at least one of the first uses of semaphore, and they warned them that they were getting flanked. So it still works in the game. But in game terms, as I said, the Confederate has these 2 brigades right here. Well, his name is spelled C-O-C-K-E, so cock is what you would think it is, but it's supposed to be pronounced coke. I bet what happened was he just got made fun of a lot and started saying, nope, it's pronounced coke. Anyway, and then over here, this is Evans' brigade, and Schenck's brigade is coming in that direction, and you're going to have an entire division coming in there, and you have the Confederate division coming in here. So they're going to be meeting up, and we'll see what happens. End of the second turn, and foster kitty! Alright, so we are at the end of turn 2. We actually skipped by turn 1 because it's really just these 2 brigades firing each other. They're the only ones in range. Well, there was this artillery. The Union got the worst of it, took a stand of casualties, almost went off the table, but it's okay at the beginning because in this particular scenario, if they go off in this corner, it just means that they get eaten by kitten. No, it means that they went to the picnickers who were there. Yes, during the first Battle of Bull Run, people went out to the battlefield and ate snack cakes. They basically had picnics while watching the battlefield, and people who ran from the battle ran through them, and in fact, actually, the route got chased through them. So anyway, in this, the Confederates get a point for pushing them through, or get an extra point for pushing them through there, but the Union brigades come back from that particular area. That's this particular scenario. Anyway, in turn 2, the Union's 1st Division came onto the field on that particular side. There's that ford that's right there. The Confederates are just still holding where they are. They have their 1st Division coming onto the board, rushing as quickly as possible to get into place. End of the 3rd turn, and the Confederate 1st Division is coming in as quickly as it can. Meanwhile, up here, the strength of the Union is starting to weigh in on the Confederates. They are bringing a lot of numbers in there, and Evans is holding as much as he can. He is starting to take losses, then he's having to pull back, firing as he does. Meanwhile, Coke is doing something interesting. Typically, players try to hold him back, but this time the Confederate player is actually moving him across the creek, across that bridge, to come up at the Federals. Now, he is under a blue order technically at the beginning of this, so he's going to have to switch to a red order in order to get too close. But the Federals are starting to pull back a little bit, so he has a little bit of distance that he can move up there. So the Federals are starting to move up there. This is Sherman's brigade. His special rule is that his units can move faster across creeks. That's based on the fact that actually historically they got across this creek faster than anybody else. Sherman was good with the discipline, and he was one of the better commanders. That's why he rose up in rank, and it's also why his brigade is the one standard one. Everybody else is green. If they don't have a pin on them that is green, white, or blue, it just means that they are automatically green because it's early war. Anyway, and Schenck's brigade is pulling back. They're almost off the table. It's really been hard for them. The Confederates probably won't have another chance for that at the moment, but meanwhile, they are doing what they're doing, and the 1st Brigade is moving up, so that's going to be a big important part. All the 1st Brigade is actually on except for Jackson's brigade. End of turn 4, now everybody's getting in on the action. We now have the 2nd Union Brigade getting on the table. It is not all on yet, but you can see the cavalry is on there now and moving up from this angle. Evans has pulled back along with his artillery, is firing at Sherman, but Taylor is staying there and keeping their morale good, even in the face of canister. However, well, the canister that's firing, though, bear in mind, the cannon is being moved as it's firing, so it's not doing quite as much. Coke, on the other hand, is moving across. I'm going to call him Cock. I like that name. Anyway, he's moving across. He's gotten into line, and he's firing, and the Federals have Schenck, the remains of Schenck, trying to hold him off. So Cock versus Schenck. I find that very interesting in prison talk. Anyway, it's also starting to move. The Union is moving its brigades across. Sherman is covering them. It's got artillery behind them, and this artillery here didn't realize it got messed. Well, actually, he can shoot over here because the bridge does not block it, and he's putting a little bit of damage into Evans, but Evans is holding steady even though they are in disorder. The Confederates, meanwhile, are starting to get into place all along here. And the game progresses with new brigades continuing to come onto the field. The Federals continue to get more of their 2nd Brigade, while the Confederate 2nd Brigade is getting on, and in fact, Beauregard, who is the 2nd Brigade commander, is sending the Red Order over here to follow up on Coke's aggressive advance against the Federals here. This is actually turning into a rather interesting attack. They haven't done anything to each other yet. The Confederates can't move any further to them. They're technically still in a blue order here. Once that red order goes in, they will be able to aggressively move onto the Federal rear, and the only thing holding that is Schenck's brigade still holding there. The rest of it is trying to move over across this creek, but of course if they move up there, that'll change the game again a bit. Evans has gotten onto this hill and is holding against Sherman's brigade, which is right up here and continuing to cover more coming in, and the cavalry is coming up on the side, so Evans might be in trouble here in a moment, but he is starting to get support here from this 1st Brigade, which is getting into place on this hill. And now the action's starting to heat up as units continue to pour onto the field. You can see here the Federal divisions are pouring onto the field, and this division, this Confederate division, is starting to take that hill while this division is still getting on the table, and Beauregard's order is still getting to Coke, who's getting into position to get into the Federal rear. Now over here, this is where some action has taken place. The cavalry rushed forward, tried to take that artillery. Evan was right there. Evan's brigade was right there. Managed to push them back and killed some cavalry while he was there. Oh, we forgot to put the casualty markers there, but we will. Meanwhile, Sherman's brigade actually is what damaged the artillery there, even though the cavalry didn't take it out. After they got done with their charge and got repulsed, the infantry shot up the cannoneers there who were trying to take back their posts. Meanwhile, the rest of the division is getting into place, and basically everybody is just starting to kind of take their positions, and I should actually at this point let you know what the victory objectives are. These two houses, each one of them is worth points. This one is worth 10. I forget if this one's worth either 5 or 10. Don't ask me, I just created this scenario. But anyway, this is worth victory points, and over here, this is worth 5 victory points. So the Confederates clearly have that one. Actually, they have all of the victory points at this particular point, and the Federals will have to go take some of them. And now everyone is on the table, and the battle is about to really get ugly. There's already been some firing going on. Let's take a look at it. Over here, this artillery of the Confederates has gotten itself set up, is firing over here at the Federals coming in. There's some of them on that hill, but these others are marching on, and it's hitting them while still in column. It's not causing them to break, but it is putting morale, fear, and exhaustion onto them. Over here, Evans' brigade is still holding on against incredible odds. Look at all that. The Federals are getting themselves set up. We are going to have to start calling that Stonewall Evans. He is really holding it, while his compatriot Koch has gotten into an attack formation, into an attack brigade formation there, and they are getting ready to charge into the Federals that are there, and actually they are quite a bit stronger. They will indeed be in the rear of the Federals over there. Meanwhile, all these reinforcements are coming in and getting set up. This is an entire 2nd Division of the Confederates, and they are set up there. Continuing on, now the forces are starting to move closer to one another. The Federals have lined up here and are getting themselves prepared to go in. Over here, actually, this line of artillery has finally gotten set up, and they've done some heavy fire over here, got rid of that artillery, damaged Evans' brigade even more. There's only one stand left, but they are standing tall. They backed up into those woods, but their morale just will not cause them to rout. So they are just holding where they are for Old Virginia. It is definitely Stonewall Evans. They have no special abilities, and in fact they are green, but yet somehow they are holding. Over here, Koch has now charged into that line, has pushed them back, and is going back towards that artillery. It is rifled artillery, so they're better at long range, but man, they're getting right in their faces, have gotten behind the Federal line over here, and the Federals have in fact turned to face them, and it might stall their advance over on this particular flank. Oh, meanwhile, over here with these Confederates, there's a 2nd Division over here, is starting to move over. You notice this is the road that leads up to this hill to fight them, but they're starting to get on that road. It looks like they might be following Evans's advance and what he's accomplished. So, oh, and also you're going to see some cavalry over here. We had kind of forgotten them before, gave them 2 moves. This is Stuart's cavalry. First time they have appeared on a battlefield, so now they are going around this particular flank, it looks like. Also, you'll notice over here, there are some it looks like Union soldiers in Union uniforms. Actually, what this is Bonham's brigade. What happened on that day, there was a lot of confusion, and different soldiers had different type of uniforms. Most of the Confederates came in whatever they had, but tried to stay in gray and butternut. But there were some that just had Union uniforms. In particular, there's one particular brigade where when they got up to the Federals didn't shoot at them because they saw them in blue uniforms, thought they were on their side. All of a sudden they started firing on them, and so the special rule in this game is one turn. If they choose not to fire, the Federals cannot fire on them. Alright, we're probably going to have to go to artificial light here in a moment. Now we can see, since we have all this artificial light, and the battle continues to rage. Over here, Koch has stalled his advance over there, but he's basically done what he needed to do. He has caused the Federals to get distracted and face towards him, so their advance is not going well. They do have some men moving forward, and they have this line of artillery that is trying to knock Evans out of there, and they just can't do it. They can't destroy him, they can't cause him to run. He just is going to hold there at all costs. They should be firing at this long line along here, but that's what Evans and Koch really are doing, is they are distracting them, they're far more effective than usual. Most of the time in this game, they kind of skirmish for the Federals and have to pull back, but not this time. They are really holding the entire Federal left line, that 1st Division that happened. So how's the 2nd Division doing? Well, they're slowly getting into place, but they're a little bit clogged up here. They misjudged a little bit of their movement. Over here, they could have gotten a little more into place, but these guys were already in position, and they would have landed right on top of them, so they didn't quite get there. This line could have gone further, but they were in the trees, they were in the forest at the time, so they didn't get as much movement as they would like. They have stopped some of that artillery from getting into place. This line has gone up there, but they're a bit more unsupported. The Confederates have now started to move this line forward, and they are behind this hill, so they're getting some cover as they advance. They're not just defending. The rest are moving up into place, and these guys have gotten into position all along this hill. So you're going to see, probably next turn, some conflicts between them and some of the Union left, which, as I said, they're not going to have as much as they'd like. And that Union right is not quite getting into position as quickly as they'd like, and the Confederates are using it to their advantage. Oh, and they're also bringing up this cavalry. So, meanwhile, back here, the 2nd Brigade, or 2nd Division under Beauregard, they've got some men still continuing to follow up that Koch advance. I'm not sure if they're going to get there on time. Oh yeah, you notice this artillery's gotten damaged. It's because some of this artillery got turned on them. Again, they're getting distracted with the attacks over here, rather than focusing in this middle, which would be probably more effective. Over here, you have Bonham's brigade is starting to move forward, so they're probably going to be supporting on this hill, and the rest of the division is behind him. This is a real crossroads. If they go to their right or left, that means they're going over to help Koch, it seems, and if they go forward, they're going over here to help this hill. So, we're going to see how much that division goes one way or the other. The commander is right over here and directing them. And the battle is in full swing. There is some intense combat going on here. Mainly, it is near the center here, at the Union sort of center left, the Confederate center right. Evans pulled back there and will live to fight another day. He's only got 1 unit left, so he really isn't going to be able to do much. He's sort of behind those woods there. Meanwhile, you have this brigade here that was hit by 2 Federal brigades. That pushed them back. They do have some artillery there that is supporting them. That has kept the Federals from completely running them over, and now they're going to have to reorganize next turn. They would have another unit to go pushing in there, but they are back here dealing with Koch. Koch, meanwhile, is barely holding on there, and they're going to have to pull back soon. But they have done their job by holding up 2 Federal brigades and that artillery there. Imagine what that could be doing over here, but it is instead dealing with their left over there beyond that bridge. So they're not there. They're actually out of action. Just basically dealing with that, they're going to be getting rid of it. However, the Confederates also have some others who are going across that river, across that bridge over there. So see, watch for some more action happening over there. Meanwhile, you do have this artillery that's ignoring it. They are firing up here. They supported this attack, and that is doing some damage to the Confederates there. All along here, they are lined up on that hill there against the Federals who are lined up here. Now, here's the interesting thing. The Federals have gotten some rifled artillery here and are going to be able to really do some damage. So these Confederates are going to have to do something over there, and they have Federals on their right. So they might be in a precarious situation, although they do have some reinforcements coming up. Meanwhile, over here, you have these lines getting ready to go up against these Federals over here. The hill is in the way, but they're getting some pot shots here between them. They would have a second line to support them, but they are having to deal with them. So you end up having this interesting sort of chess situation where one brigade is dealing with another, which is supporting another, and it's all along this line here. You can see how sort of complex it is among them. The Confederates, though, they do have this cavalry that's here, right here on the end. They are in line in march column, which usually is not good for attacks, but that leaves them just enough room to go in over there after these Zouaves. The Zouaves have a special ability where they can go prone, where they take less damage, and they can fire more effectively. However, it's bad for them when they are charged. By the way, over here we finally put the Federal main commander here, the Corps commander, McDowell. We had forgotten to put him there before. He is now sending out orders. They also have gotten their rifled artillery and smoothbore artillery set up, and so watch for them doing quite a bit of damage over here at the Confederates. Next turn is going to be a major fight, I believe. An intense turn here, and it is going to be decided one way or the other very soon. Look at this cluster fudge. I'm going to keep this kid-friendly at the moment, because of course kids need to see all this carnage. But yeah, essentially what happened is the Confederates went charging in there with this brigade, actually this front one, broke the, Zouaves, who went running back through this line. That put both of them in disorder. Firing at both of them caused their morale numbers to go up a bit more. In fact, actually, that should be above a 2. I'll have to check on that. But anyway, they're backing up with more brigades who are not in disorder. So the Federals, because they were doubled up like that, are now getting into disorder with multiple lines, whereas the Confederates are moving forward with one line in disorder and the others still ready to charge next turn. It will really depend on initiative, and the Confederates typically have a little bit better initiative at this particular period. Over here, the Confederate line, who was back there, realize they're going to get hit with all that artillery, so they better move in there. They did. They moved up after all of that federal infantry, charged right into them and put them into disorder, caused them to fall back a little ways. They also have their commander, who is Johnston. Johnston is helping them to push forward, push the Federals back there, and also they got into close range of that rifled artillery, which is usually rifled artillery is better at medium range, and right here now they are close range. They were at medium range, but now they have moved forward. They are basically being aggressive and doing kind of what they need to do. Up here, the cavalry charge at this infantry broke them up a little bit, but still took more damage and did not manage to break them. Over here, the federal line has had to reorganize, and Taylor is their division commander, and he has a special rule where everybody under his command, if they are on casualty markers, they get stalled for an extra turn, so they're going to be stalled for yet another turn while the Confederates reorganize themselves, get themselves in position. In fact, while Evans goes running back, that's the one thing they did. They did finally cause Evans to break. He is retreating, his guys are routing, but you see these other brigades are getting into place, and so the Confederates are now defending that position, so that their right side of their hill, our left, and the Federal left, that is now starting to reorganize the Confederates, and on our right, the Confederates have abandoned their position, but they do have reinforcements going up there to hold that hill if this doesn't tend to work. It's a very risky move, but it's probably about all they have, and the Confederates really needed to be to use long chances because they were, had so much fewer troops, and you can tell over here they have actually an attack brigade here, or they're in an attack column. That's what I was trying to think of, ready to charge. Plus these are ready as well. Over here, the Federals are getting the better position. They are the better of Koch. They are managing to press him back, but again, it is causing them to use the resources there. Koch is just barely hanging on. He has no division commander there to support him, no artillery or anything like that, plus the Federals have some artillery to help. Well, actually, it's behind the line there, so they're not able to support in that. They're really for firing over here. Don't have a lot of targets because their own guys got in the way, but they did have this. They supported the cavalry charge. Anyway, so they are managing to push Koch back and knock him off. They might actually have him pretty soon. However, right as the rest of the brigades come in there, and that artillery is still firing as well. Still have the commander Beauregard is over there. So very interesting turn. We're going to see what happens. It looks like the Confederates are pushing forward on the bottom there, and the Federals are pushing forward on the top. Both of them might be getting exhausted, but we're going to see within a turn or two if either of the plans are working. Otherwise, it might turn into a stalemate. Although, actually, they are also near breaking points. Remember, they're all green. Almost all the troops are green. And the commanders do not have really high damage numbers, so they can't take a lot of damage before they get themselves ready to break. And the carnage continues, especially down near the bottom at this cluster fudge. The Confederates continue to keep hitting the Federals, pushing them back one after the other. It's kind of like leapfrog. You hit one unit, it runs behind the other, then they hit the other one, it runs back, and whenever you run through a unit, it goes into disorder. So the Federals are very disordered now, and in fact they have the Zouaves are now routing. Actually, part of it comes because there's a special rule with McDowell where it's called all green alike, and it comes from Lincoln's quote where he basically told McDowell, "You're all green alike." He believed the Confederates were still very green and that the Federals would be able to stand up to them because, well, everybody is green, you're all green alike. What he didn't count on was the Confederates, because they're defending their territory, were a little bit more eager to fight, plus they were more of because they were more of an agriculture and hunting society, more of their men were more used to firing without even having to train. So as a result, you did have troops that were a little bit better at that particular point. On the Confederate side, the Federals were not quite trained enough, and so they rout in this game. They rout a little bit faster than the Confederates do. Also, what you had is this sort of setup where you had one brigade right in front of another, right in front of another. So if one brigade breaks, it runs through them. Now this can work in the offense where you can have both brigades charge together, but if you get hit, well, you run the risk of exactly what's happening here. One unit falls behind the other, falls behind the other, and at this point they're in such disorder they can't mount a charge, and the best they can do is try to get order. Their commander, Hunter, is trying to hold things together, but having real difficulty, especially with some of his men now routing through the troops. Confederates keep getting disordered as they charge, but they keep having another one behind them, and the unit that's behind has now gotten back into order. Plus, you have this this one that is in an attack. Was it an attack column that is not even charged yet? So they're still waiting, and you have the cavalry, which did a clever move here. They have a special maneuver based on something historical that happened. Stuart actually, in the Battle of Bull Run, just rode up into enemy lines, into Federal lines, thinking it was his own, and he didn't realize it until it was too late. Once he was actually in the lines and they were, kind of looking at him, he's like, oh shoot, I went into enemy lines. But rather than surrendering to them as normally people would do, he started giving them orders. He says, all of you, fall in there. And they see he's a Confederate officer, but they're just kind of confused by what's going on. They see someone giving them an order, so they go, okay, so they just marched into line. Or into the prison camp, basically. They march into being prisoners, put their weapons down, because he ordered them. So in this, you have a special order during Battle of Bull Run, and actually for the first year, for the 1861, if you buy the Stuart's cavalry, he has a special rule where if he rides up to someone and doesn't fire at them, he can cause them to, he can roll against them and cause them to surrender. And certainly enough, they caused this unit to surrender. And that was part of one of these, and so they've gone, and well, actually, he basically rode up, caused the one to surrender, and then they charged into them and caused them to fall back, and that was this unit. And then they fell back to them, causing them to go into disorder, and like I said, the others are still ready to go at them. So the Federals are in pretty bad shape over on their right. Hunter's trying to mount a defense. They charged into them. They charged into here earlier. Not this particular turn. However, there was fire from back here, caused this unit to pull back, and in pulling back through the artillery, no, the artillery's not turning around and pointing at them, but it silenced them. When artillery goes into disorder, they are silenced for the turn. So they were not able to fire this turn. They're into disorder, and they're going to have trouble getting back into order because their commander, Heintzelman, was killed last turn. I forgot to point that out last time. So they're kind of in trouble. Being green troops, it's hard for them to reorganize on their own, and they're kind of getting, and their commander's gone. However, they do have McDowell back there, who I guess the commander, the player, forgot to put him up there to help. Anyway, back here, it's sort of a clear field, and the Confederates have gotten themselves into position so that if this thing doesn't work for some reason, they're still going to have a good defense over here. Over here, they have continued to defend this thing. In fact, they have reorganized. They have caused the Federals who were charging there to rout and the cavalry to rout. So the Federals are actually really at risk of meeting their casualty number, which means that they will cease to fight. McDowell will call it and send everybody away. And over here, the Federals got themselves in order and could have gone maybe in on them, but they marched up. Bonham's brigade marched up. And remember, they're the ones in Federal uniforms, and so they fooled the Federals into thinking they're one of theirs, and they're like, hey, what are you doing here? And they just kind of stared at them, and they're like, oh, shoot, we're against each other, and so now they're going to fire each other the next turn, but this turn, they got to move up there, and because they were, because they are in Union uniforms, the player was able to use a special rule to cause the Federals not to fire. In fact, this is the perfect use of that rule. Because essentially what would happen is if the Federals got to fire and the Confederates got to fire on the same turn, Confederates would be at a disadvantage this turn because they have moved. So it's best to use that when you moved, and they have not, because they would get a higher firepower number on you. But because because he used that rule, now the Federals cannot use that superior firepower number, and now that they're in place, they're going to be firing evenly to each other next turn. Up here, Coke is now pulled himself back. He's getting himself in position behind, while the other two lines are getting into position to take on the Federals who've already kind of been in combat over here. And there's really a stalemate going on, but and the Federals aren't really doing anything, but they have to use these resources to kind of keep them from going into their rear and doing even more damage. So, will the Federals be able to hold up here? I think it's really going to wind up being all about here, because this charge didn't succeed, and this guy is heavily outnumbered, even by other blue coats. And since he can't get any reinforcements from back there, this flank is kind of not really going to be very helpful for the Federals. It really comes down to, can they stop the Confederates and then start to move in on them, even though they do have a new line there. We'll see soon. And the Confederates continue to trounce the Union. That's kind of been a theme this season. Again, this is not on purpose, it just kind of keeps happening. Over here, the Confederates have continued to just leapfrog. This has been a really good strategy, having several brigades in there. One leapfrogs over the other. One of them reorganizes as these guys are having to do this turn, while the other one pushes forward, chasing after the Federals, who are having trouble reorganizing. Their commander is doing his best to try to get them back into shape, as trying to get these Zouaves to stop from retreating, because they are, once there's one more casualty, the Federals have lost this battle because they've reached their maximum limit. So anyway, so this charge just keeps on happening. The Confederates have come over here and actually managed to push the Federals back far enough. They pushed these guys back and captured their guns, and in the special rule, normally you capture the guns, that's it, you get points for it. In the Bull Run scenario, when you capture them, you actually get the guns. And the reason for that is actually normally when gunners leave their guns, they basically, as they know somebody's coming at them, they know they're about to lose it, they basically spike the guns. They make it so it's inoperable. But at this point, nobody really was trained well enough to do that, so if somebody came and took the guns, they could take them and start using them themselves. So, as green, as basically green gunners. So they grabbed it, and now they are going to be firing at other Federal gunners. Over here, they've continued to move forward, push forward, pushing the Union back. Oh yeah, these guys are now routing. Again, the Federals just rout really easily in this one. Over here, they're having trouble regrouping. Oh, in fact, actually, they were more damage than that. I forgot to take something off the field. Anyway, over here, the guns are still there and trying to fire at something. But it's hard to get a target because these guys keep charging into the Federals. In fact, remember, they were over here. Now this brigade hit them, and followed up by Bonham's brigades, essentially saying, hey, surprise, we're not actually Federals. Their commander, Taylor, is trying to get them to reorder and get them back into order to go back after them, but it's kind of not looking like there's much hope over on that particular flank, because there isn't a lot left over there. You still have these guys who are getting ready for another Confederate charge, which may be a feint and may be just simply that they're threatening over there to keep them occupied as they have this entire game. But then again, maybe they're going for the killing blow. Who knows? But this is the way it looks. One more casualty on the Federal side, and they have lost it. They are trying to hold on for dear life and turn this thing around. The movement phase isn't even over, and this game is done. Essentially, we had to move all the routing units. They moved during the morale phase and during the movement phase, and they cannot stop themselves during the movement phase, even with the morale roll. And these guys ran right into the river. And the way that rule works is, when you hit a river, when you hit impassable terrain, every inch that you're supposed to be moving but you're unable to, and when you're forced to go that way, and they're forced to because of that, every inch that you're supposed to go but you cannot move, you take a point of damage, and they took enough to end that unit. So that does it. That's the last of the Federals. Plus, they still had to move these guys. I think they might have been making it. I think we started to move them and then stopped because, well, it's over anyway. So they took at least the amount of damage. The Federals took at least the amount of damage that it would take to end this game, and it was looking pretty bad for them anyway. I mean, they had these disordered units sort of trying to hold off the Confederates, and it was kind of interesting. They had this whole disordered line versus another disordered line. Confederate charge was starting to lose power. Even though they're doing the leapfrog thing, they were starting to lose enough men and take enough morale damage that was getting more and more difficult. And the Federals had this thin blue line, so essentially it's like a rear guard action that they're running to kind of guard the retreat as their men run, which is really what happened in the Battle of Bull Run. It was called the Great Skedaddle. You had these men actually who were running, but they did have McDowell there who could probably rally them. He doesn't have a huge command rating, but he might be able to keep them. But anyway, so what you would end up having is essentially this Federal line holding off so that the rest of the Union line could retreat. You of course have these guys routing and nobody else that's over here. So Federal left is really just gone. They do have this artillery which could pound the Confederates from a distance, but as we've seen, the Confederates can get across that field pretty effectively. You also have these guys who were routing, and they were going to be gone in a turn anyway, so it was really pretty much over for them. This really was a very effective part of the battle, and we decided to just sort of see it through, see what Cope would have done had he gone in. He went in with his attack column, and all of that fire did manage to cause his men to break and run. Well, not rout, but they did pull back. They pulled back past the second line, which put them into disorder, so they were unable to charge. So that whole side was not able to continue, but they did their job by keeping all of those resources pointed at them and not doing the job they really needed to do. So that kind of emptied out this area, which of course made that area not effective and made the Confederates able to concentrate on this area. So that did it. That'll be it for this particular battle. It's another Confederate victory. We swear we're not fixing these. It's just that's the way they've been turning out. We're going to have one more with Wilson's Creek, so I'm sure the Federals will be trying to come back with a vengeance at that one. We appreciate you watching. Be sure to subscribe. Tell all your friends about it. And this game is also available on War Game Vault and on Amazon, both Command Combat Civil War and the Battle Pack for the the first Battle of Bull Run, as well as other battle packs. So that'll be it. Thank you all for watching, and happy gaming, everybody! What did you think of that battle, Kitty? Yeah? What else? Yeah, kind of went bad for the Federals. But the historical one went pretty bad for them too, so. Did you like this video? Then be sure to subscribe to see more and share us with your friends. Also, if you'd like to support us financially or just give us a tip, consider a donation on Patreon. A little donation from each of our viewers helps us expand the videos, keeps the channel going, and helps us make more of them. You also get bonus videos and a big thank you from us. Happy gaming, everybody!